Hello there. Alrighty, well, good afternoon. I'm Eric Padden once again, and in this video, I'd like to talk about our silver and gold in a bubble. And this is actually a follow-up. I actually did a video on this topic before, and one of the comments that I received was, do your research, silver is not a bubble. So I just want to do a follow-up and just clarify where I was coming from with that. And when I speak about a bubble, I'm not necessarily in the case of silver, meaning a negative bubble, like we think when we hear of dot-com bubble or real estate bubble and something that's extremely overvalued, but more so in that it's been manipulated down for so long with the whole, most of us are familiar now with the J.P. Morgan, HSBC lawsuit and the exposure of them manipulating silver and gold and other commodities. But what they're being exposed for right now is mainly via their SLV and GLD ETFs, which, if you're familiar with how that works, people can supposedly buy silver and gold, much like you'd buy a stock. However, they manipulated the laws just like they did to create the dot-com and the real estate bubble and basically create gold and silver, which we all know is a physical metal, as if it was dollars. In other words, using like a fractional reserve banking concept. If you're familiar with fractional reserve banking, that's where basically the money that is created from you getting a mortgage or a car loan, a lot of people think that that money is from other depositors and that bank will loan you money they've got from other depositors. As you become educated on how our debt-based economy works, it's your actual signature for that auto loan or that mortgage or whatever it is that creates that money, out of thin air. And then what that bank can then do is go ahead and multiply that by 10 throughout the fractional reserve banking system. And how that works is another video, but basically Bank A gets to loan 90% of that. So if there's $100,000 involved, Bank A gets to take that $100,000 that you deposited, based on the mortgage or whatever, and that money now, 90,000 of that gets loaned out Bank B. And of course Bank B gets to take 90% of that, 81,000, and loan that out, and so on until it goes all the way down and multiplies basically times 10. So they've now managed to basically take that concept and put it on steroids, so to speak, to the point where they're selling via their ETFs around 100 ounces of paper silver, what I call phantom silver, silver that doesn't even exist in the physical world, but through leveraging and different ways of creative trades, they're able to control that much silver, what they call naked shorts and so on. But bottom line, their manipulation is coming to an end because it's been exposed. And so what I meant was, it's going to be coming up in value along with the rest of the commodities. I believe that all the money that's being created right now, via whether it's through the bailouts or through quantitative easing or any type of stimulus package, we're not just talking US dollars, but remember they're doing this all over the world and a lot of other fiat currencies as well. So all this money that's being created out there, this ocean of money, if you will, going all over the planet, more money than there's ever been in the history of mankind, is always looking for somewhere to go. And whenever it gets nervous or scared, historically all that money will find its way back to precious metals. That's kind of the safe haven that it likes to weather, the financial storms. And every fiat currency ever created, there's about 3,800 of them on record, have all eventually become worthless. When a fiat currency is created, if it's not tied to silver or gold or something that is able to limit its production, it goes back to that old power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. And it's just a matter of time before they'll lose discipline and they'll print more and more and more, particularly when there's wars going on. This is the main reason the US broke away from the gold standard via Nixon in 1973, was to be able to fight the wars that were going on. And so bottom line, they will print more and more and more, and this will devalue the currency. And this is what we're going through in the United States faster than ever before. Remember this, it took us about 300 years, going back into early, the first Pilgrim. 300 years later, we had spent our first trillion. Okay, then all of a sudden it took us 8 years if you look at the next trillion, and then if you look at the last trillion that we just built onto our supposedly 12 billion or 12 trillion plus deficit, just took us about 4 months. Okay, so I mean, it's just snowballing like never before. We've literally doubled the dollars out there within the last year. And so you're talking serious amounts of money that are out there. And what that does is it devalues each and every dollar that is in our checking account, savings account, 401k, IRA. And so the smart money will always find its way to precious metals to protect the wealth. So I do believe there's a commodities bubble that's being created all around the world right now. Various different commodities have doubled, quadrupled, and are going to continue to go up because once again, all that money has to find somewhere to go. Now, if you look at the fundamentals behind silver specifically, though, the bubble, in my opinion, isn't going to be a big bubble pop, and go down like what you might perceive. What I meant by that was the fundamentals. If you look, let's just go short and sweet here. Back to 1950, okay, there was about 1 billion ounces of gold that were above ground, and there was about 10 billion ounces of silver that were above ground. They've been stockpiled away in 1950. And then fast forward to today, because silver has been so cheap over the years, nobody really goes out of their way to mine silvers anymore. The few mines that do it at a loss. And as a result, the only silver that we've really come up with recently is silver, that you pick up as you're, mining for zinc or other metals as a byproduct. And so with that 10 billion ounce surplus that we had in 1950 has been slowly eaten into. For example, every single year since 1991, we've actually used up more silver than we've been mining. Just looking at 2010, when we used about 890 million ounces of silver between the industrial demand and the investor demand, and yet we only mined about 650,000. So today, you're looking at estimates ranging on the low end, 500 to 700 million ounces of silver above ground and available, to no more than 900 million ounces. Okay, so what happened was, since gold has been hoarded and has been more profitable to mine, there's currently, as we speak in 2011, 7 billion ounces of gold. All the gold ever mined is basically still around, somewhere, and it's hoarded away. However, silver is an industrial metal that's getting used up faster than ever before. Matter of fact, if you were to look at the new patents that are coming out, there's thousands of new patents that are silver-based every single year. And it's not just for the chips and the batteries and things that most of us know about, and the solar panels and things like that, but now you're getting tons and tons of silver being used just in clothing because it's such a good antibacterial. They're using it in medical, things all the time. My wife says, she's a nurse, we use silver all the time. And it's in everything because of the microbial factors, and being such a good antibacterial, it's used in all types of different medical uses. So the bottom line is, yes, I think silver is going to get caught up in the commodities bubble, okay, as all these commodities go up. However, I don't think silver is going to have the downside on the back end. And so I just wanted to clarify that. Maybe I used the wrong terminology there. The fundamentals behind silver, the fact that the supply has not kept up with the demand since 1991, and that we've used up all of the surplus. Okay, there is no more surplus to pull from. So what does that mean? That means that in order to get new silver, they've got to step up mining. Okay, the only way that's going to happen is if it gets more expensive to make it more profitable to go after. And so remember, in the earth, there's still much more silver than gold in the earth itself. Okay, that hasn't really changed. That's still maybe 10 to 1, which it's been historically. However, right now, as we speak, there's only about 1 billion ounces of silver available to meet the demand for whether it be investment or whether it be industrial, and yet there's about 7 billion ounces of gold. So think about that for a moment. 7 billion ounces of gold available to us, 1 billion ounces of silver, and yet current value, we're looking at 40 ounces of silver to buy 1 ounce of gold. Now, I'm not a rocket scientist or anything, but I don't know, I'm thinking there's a little bit of room for an upside there. So I'm really excited. I've been collecting silver for years myself, and I think it's one of the best things you can do to preserve your wealth and protect your family. As you might have heard on my other videos, every single fiat currency ever created starts out worth a certain amount. It becomes worth less. As they print more, it becomes worth less. As they print more, it becomes eventually worthless. Once again, 3,800 of them on record. None of them have ever survived long term. I don't think any of the fiat currencies around the world right now are going to be an exception, but the powers that be that run the media, okay, they don't want anybody to know this. They've been for years, basically pulling the wool over everybody's eyes. Well, a lot of the other countries are getting smart. China is no longer, buying our treasury bills to fund our economy. So what's the Federal Reserve do? They say, hey, no problem, we'll print them. And so what does that do? The more the Federal Reserve has to print those, that creates a situation where we go deeper and deeper into debt. Because remember, they're not creating currency as they should via the Constitution through the Treasury Department. They're creating currency via the Federal Reserve, where there's interest charged on every dollar created from day one. That interest is where all of our federal income tax money goes. This is a whole nother video, Federal Reserve System, but most people think that our federal taxes go to something productive, like schools or roads or something like that. They don't. That's actually where your local and state income tax goes. However, federal tax is a giant scam. It's the biggest scam in the history of mankind. And it goes to pay interest on the debt. If you're not familiar with this, you need to educate yourself. Okay? The internet nowadays has allowed us to find out the truth. And so on my blog, if you were to go to isncoinsbusiness.com, my blog has a lot of different topics, and you'll notice down below on there, one of them is economy, silver manipulation, and I think if you get in there and educate yourself under economy, there's a little video, and it's called Money as Debt, and it explains how a debt-based currency and all the debt-based currencies around the world work through a fractional reserve banking system. And I've done another video on that. You might want to check it out. You might want to just click on my blog, once again, isncoinsbusiness.com. Go in there and look at that video, Money as Debt. And there's some other videos, great videos that I've put together in there to help educate you on the situation that we're in right now. And so we're coming to a point now where you're going to see some serious inflation, possibly even hyperinflation. That's what happens when they print all that money. And so you need to prepare yourself by putting your paper money into silver. I just believe silver has more of an upside. I think you're better off even in gold than leaving it in paper. I mean, let's look at even just a few years ago, 2 years ago, you could have bought $12 an ounce silver. As I make this video, it's $37 an ounce, okay? And you've lost anywhere from 10 to 15%, depending on who you want to listen to, as far as purchasing power of your dollar, just in that same 2 years. Since 1955, you've lost 90% of the purchasing power of your dollar. You don't believe me? Let's take a real simple example. In 1955, you could buy a brand new Ford for $1,600. Fast forward to 2011, you'd be lucky if you can get that brand new Ford today for $16,000. So real simple, basic math. Basically, you've had your $16,000 Ford that you could buy for $1,600 in 1955. So in other words, the dollar's lost 90% of its purchasing power. Now, if you'd have been smart enough to be putting silver away, okay, even just little by little, even just have a coin shipped out every month on auto ship, you could go ahead and you could have taken that 90-cent ounce of silver, and slowly over the years, you could have multiplied your purchasing power times 40, looking at today at $37 silver. So anyway, I just wanted to share with you, I didn't mean that silver was in a bubble in a negative aspect, meaning that it's going to get caught up, it's got a lot of upside. I believe that gold and silver both have a lot of upside. I just think because of the physical reality that silver is going to close that gap. And so my exit strategy is to hold silver until we go from the current 40 to 1 closer to maybe a 10 to 1, which is actually the physical in the earth, okay, not necessarily above ground, but in the earth is more like a 10 to 1 ratio, gold to silver. And so I think when it gets there, that's when you'll be able to make a move. In my opinion, we'll be making a move into anything from real estate if somehow they can manage to buy more time with the dollar. I really believe that if you understand how a debt-based currency works, it always gets to the point, I can use the analogy of the person in debt living, and paying off credit card A with credit card B. Pretty soon they're deeper in debt. If they still got good credit, they'll apply for credit card C. They'll get as many credit cards as they can. What ends up happening is they'll end up paying off the new debt with the old debt. Well, the problem with that is that eventually you get to a point where all the money you make at your job, all the credit cards you can apply for, basically you cannot pay the interest on the debt. You end up banging your head up against the interest, okay? And pretty soon when that happens and all the money you make and all the credit cards doesn't pay the interest on the old debt, the system crashes, okay? In the case of an individual, you're going bankrupt. In the case of a government, you're going bankrupt. In the case of a currency, it's crashing. And so I believe we're at the end, maybe 2, 3, 4, if they can manipulate it right and play the game without, the rest of the world getting smart and cutting us off, maybe we could get 5 years out of it. But I want to come out of the other side of this in that new one world currency that they're shooting for. I believe they're going to make everybody around the world beg for a one world currency as the solution to the world's economy problems. So anyway, if you'd like to learn more, you can always give me a call, 858-705-2487. You can jump on my blog at isncoinsbusiness.com and learn more about it there. I thank you very much for your time. You have a great day. If you like my video, give me a little like on there. I appreciate that, and I'm always open to your comments.